اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم الحمدللہ رب العالمین والصلاة والسلام علی رسول کریم ان اللہ وملائکتہ یصلون علی النبی یا ایہا الذین آمنوا صلی علیہ وسلم تسلیما اللہم صلی علی سیدنا محمد وعلی آل سیدنا محمد وصحبہ وبارک وسلم۔ السلام علیکم ناظرین، آپ دیکھ رہے ہیں وائس آف ٹورانٹو ٹیلی ویژن کی نشریات، میرے ساتھ آن فرائیڈے پرائم ٹائم میں، اور میں ہوں آپ کا میزبان انجم ملک۔ آئی ہوپ ایوری باڈی از ڈوئنگ ویل۔ اور آج فرائیڈے ہے، اکتوبر 22 2021، اور جیسے کہ آپ کو پتہ ہے کہ اب تھوڑا سا ٹیمپریچر چینج ہو رہا ہے، تو اکارڈنگلی آپ اپنے دھیان سے ایک تو گاڑی بھی چلائیے، اور خاص طور پہ میں آگے چل کے تھوڑی سی آج بات کروں گا کہ کیا پریکاشنز آپ کو لینی چاہیے گاڑی کی چلانے کے حوالے سے، اور اگر آپ کو خدا نخواستہ کبھی ایکسیڈنٹ ہو جاتا ہے اس حوالے سے آپ کو کیا کرنا چاہیے۔ آج کا جو ہمارا پروگرام ہے اس کے اندر دو تین چیزیں جو بڑی امپورٹنٹ ہیں، جو اس کا میں ہائی لائٹ کرتا چلوں کہ سب سے پہلے تو یہ کہ ہم دو چار نئے پروگرامز جو ہیں وہ آپ کے لیے شروع کرنے جا رہے ہیں وائس آف ٹورانٹو ٹیلی ویژن کے اوپر، جس کو کہ آپ انشاءاللہ اگلے کچھ دنوں میں دیکھیں گے، جس میں کہ ویمن پاور پہ ایک شو ہے، اس کے ساتھ ہمارے پاس ایک سیلیبریٹی انٹرویوز کا پروگرام ہے دل کی باتوں کے حوالے سے، ایک ہمارے پاس صحت اور ہم کا ایک پروگرام ہے، اینڈ دیر آل ول بی ہوسٹڈ بائی ویمنز انشاءاللہ، اور آپ کے لیے بہت اچھی انفارمیشن جو ہیں وہ آپ کے ساتھ آ کے شیئر کریں گے۔ بہت سارے مہمان آپ کے ساتھ شیئر کریں گے، جو ہمارے یہاں کچھ آرٹسٹ رہتے ہیں، کچھ ایکٹرز رہتے ہیں اس ملک میں، جو پرماننٹلی اب کینیڈا اور US میں مقیم ہیں، ان سے بھی ہمارا باقاعدہ ایک رابطہ رہے گا ان پروگرامز کے حوالے سے۔ اور صحت اور ہم کے حوالے سے ہماری جو ہوسٹ ہیں وہ خود ایک میڈیکل پروفیشنل ہیں، اور ڈاکٹروں کے ساتھ ان کی بات ہوگی ڈفرینٹ ٹاپکس کے اوپر، جو ہیں وہ ڈفرینٹ کانٹینٹ ہوگا ہر پروگرام کا انشاءاللہ۔ تو ضرور آپ ہمیں دیکھتے رہیے۔ سب سے پہلے تو یہ کہ وائس آف ٹورانٹو ٹیلی ویژن کو آپ دیکھ رہے ہیں سارے IP چینلز کے اوپر، ہمارا سوشل میڈیا ہینڈل جو ہے @voiceoftorontoTV ہے، اور ہمارے اسٹوڈیوز کے لائن کے نمبر 9056704114 ہیں۔ اگر آپ ڈیورنگ دا پروگرام ہم سے رابطہ کرنا چاہتے ہیں، ہمارے ساتھ انٹریکٹ کرنا چاہتے ہیں، تو ہمارے اسٹوڈیوز کی لائن پہ آپ ہمیں کال کر سکتے ہیں۔ آج خاص طور پہ MPP نتالیہ کو میں نے دعوت دی ہے، جو کہ فورڈ گورنمنٹ کے ساتھ ان کی MPP ہیں، اور خاص طور پہ آج ہم ان سے بات کریں گے جو ری اوپننگ اسٹریٹجیز جو فورڈ گورنمنٹ نے اب ڈاکٹرز کے ساتھ، چیف میڈیکل آفیسر کے ساتھ بات کر کے جو اس کو وہ لانچ کرنے جا رہے ہیں۔ تو فرسٹ آف آل تو یہ کہ ایز آف منڈے 12:01 AM جو انڈور ڈائننگ ہے اس کے اندر جو ریسٹرکشنز ہیں وہ بھی ختم ہو جائیں گی، ایریناز اور جو مووی تھیٹرز ہیں وہاں پہ بھی جو ریسٹرکشنز ہیں وہ ختم ہو جائیں گی۔ لیکن اگلے سال مارچ 28 2022 میں they are planning if everything goes well then everything will be removed, all the restrictions will be removed۔ اب جہاں تک کہ تعلق ہے کہ ماسکنگ کا، وہ ریموو ہوں گے نہیں ہوں گے، وہ چیف میڈیکل آفیسر جو ہے ہمارے جو انٹیریو کے ہیں ان کی جو بھی ہدایت ہوں گی اس حوالے سے وہ ہمیں ضرور اپڈیٹ کریں گے فورڈ گورنمنٹ جو ہے۔ لیکن میں نے سوچا کہ آج خاص طور پہ MPP نتالیہ سے ہم بات کریں اپنے پروگرام کے اندر، اور بہت ساری ایسی جو چیزیں جو ابھی اسٹریٹجائز وہ کر رہے ہیں اس حوالے سے بھی ان سے ہم ڈیٹیل سے ہم بات کریں۔ پروگرام کے شروع میں میں نے جیسے کہا کہ ہم وی آر گیٹنگ انٹو اے ونٹر سیزن، اور خاص طور پہ اگر آپ کا کبھی ایکسیڈنٹ ہو جاتا ہے تو بڑا امپورٹنٹلی یہ ہے سب سے پہلے تو ناظرین کہ آپ کے پاس آپ کی انشورنس آپ کی گاڑی میں ہونی چاہیے، اور ان کیس آف این ایکسیڈنٹ فرام دا سین آف این ایکسیڈنٹ آپ کوشش یہ کریں کہ آپ سب سے پہلے تو جہاں ایکسیڈنٹ ہوتا ہے وہاں کی پکچرز کھینچیں، اور اس کے ساتھ آپ ایکسچینج کریں اپنی جو آپ کی انفارمیشن ہے، انشورنس انفارمیشن ہے آپ کی ڈرائیور کے ساتھ، ڈپینڈنگ کرتا ہے کہ ایکسیڈنٹ کس طرح ہوا ہے اور کس کی غلطی ہے، وہ بات کی بات ہے، دیٹ ہیز ٹو بی اسٹیبلشڈ، یٹ ٹو بی اسٹیبلشڈ۔ تو وہ ایک ایشو ہے، وہ سم تھنگ دا لائرز کین لک انٹو اٹ ڈاؤن دا لائن۔ بٹ جنرلی جب آپ ایک پریمیم پے کرتے ہیں اور اس ملک کے اندر جب آپ گاڑی چلاتے ہیں تو بڑا امپورٹنٹ یہ ہے کہ آپ کے پاس انشورنس آپ کی گاڑی کے گلو باکس میں ہونی چاہیے، ویلڈ ہونی چاہیے، اور جب آپ کا ایکسیڈنٹ ہو جاتا ہے خدا نخواستہ، یا اگر کوئی آپ کو آ کے گاڑی مار دیتا ہے تو ان دیٹ کیس آلسو اگر تو ڈیمیجز جو ہیں وہ $1000 سے نیچے ہوتے ہیں تو آپ کو پولیس کو کال کرنے کی ضرورت نہیں ہوتی، آپ اپنی ایکسچینج کر لیں انفارمیشن، اور اس کے بعد آپ انشورنس کمپنی سے بات کر کے اور ان چیزوں کو ٹھیک کرا سکتے ہیں۔ لیکن اگر $1000 سے زیادہ کا ڈیمیج ہے آپ کی گاڑی کے اوپر تو اس کے لیے بڑا امپورٹنٹلی یہ ہے کہ آپ کو فرام دا سین آف دی ایکسیڈنٹ جو ہے آپ کو کال کرنا چاہیے پولیس کو، ویٹ فار دیم، لیٹ دا پولیس کم، और वो आप स्टेटमेंट जो हैं आप कोशिश करें कि वहाँ पर जहाँ एक्सीडेंट होता है वहाँ पर आप लोगों से, एक दो लोगों से बात करें, उनके भी स्टेटमेंट्स ले लें, उनके नंबर जो हैं वो आप ज़रूर एक्सचेंज कर लें अपने साथ, क्योंकि बाद में जब आप अपना क्लेम सबमिट करेंगे इंश्योरेंस कंपनी को तो ये चीज़ें आपको बहुत काम आएंगी। आई थॉट कि मैंने कोशिश ये की है कि आइंदा मेरे हर प्रोग्राम में थोड़ी एक छोटी सी टिप जो है मैं आपके लिए ज़रूर छोड़ के जाऊँ, जो कि एक जनरल, एक हमारे पास एक इन्फॉर्मेशन होनी चाहिए फ्रॉम अ वॉक ऑफ लाइफ। जब हम कोई भी काम कर रहे हों तो हमें क्या चीज़ पता होनी चाहिए, इस हवाले से बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंटली। दूसरी बात ख़ास तौर पे आज मैं ये बताना चाह रहा था कि एयरपोर्ट के ऊपर जैसे कि अब ट्रैवल जो है आहिस्ता आहिस्ता जो है वो खुलता जा रहा है, तो एयरपोर्ट के ऊपर जो है इस वक्त स्विच हेल्थ एक कंपनी है जो कि आपका PCR टेस्ट जो है वो कर सकती है, और उनकी ऐप्स हैं, आप जाएं उनको जाके मिल सकते हैं 72 आवर्स बिफोर योर फ्लाइट, और वो आपके जो रिज़ल्ट्स हैं वो PDF फॉर्मेट के अंदर वो आपको ईमेल पे भेज देंगे, जो कि आप अपनी एयरलाइन को दिखा सकते हैं, बिकॉज यू आर रिक्वायर्ड टू हैव अ PCR नेगेटिव टेस्ट व्हेन यू ट्रैवल, इवन कि आप डबल वैक्सीनेटेड हैं। तो ये दो इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ें थी जो मैंने सोचा कि आज मैं आपसे इसके हवाले से बात करता चलूँ, और आगे चल के हमारे साथ MPP नतालिया होंगे, हम उनसे बात करेंगे। लेकिन मैं चाहता हूँ कि इससे पहले कि हम उससे भी फर्दर बात करें, वो हमारे साथ हैं। अगर आप इस प्रोग्राम का हिस्सा बनना चाहते हैं तो प्लीज़ आप हमें ड्यूरिंग द प्रोग्राम हमें कॉल भी कर सकते हैं हमारी लाइन के ऊपर 9056704114। ये हमारे स्टूडियोज़ के लाइन के नंबर हैं, वो हमारे साथ हैं। हम ब्रेक पे नहीं जाते, एंड वी विल गो स्ट्रेट टू हर एक्चुअली, एंड वी विल टॉक टू हर। Hi Natalia, good evening, how are you?
Good evening, I'm very well. It's been a while, glad to be back.
I know. Well, first of all, I just would like to congratulate you again for your beautiful wedding that you had, and we really enjoyed it. It was an amazing experience going to a different traditional wedding, not a Pakistani wedding, not a Canadian wedding, but a Polish wedding. So that was a good experience actually.
Thank you so much. Have you? And
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay. I think you need to put your camera towards, yeah, this is much better. Let's talk. There have been a lot of new development at the Queen's Park, and Premier Ford has been very candid about talking about several things. So let's talk in regards to the strategies that are getting in place for the reopening of Ontario, for our Ontarians who are watching you tonight. I think I cannot hear you for some reason. Is your connection is okay?
It's okay, I can hear you perfectly.
Yeah, but I cannot hear you. That's what I'm saying. Maybe you are a little far from the camera. Maybe you can put an earplug. Yeah, okay, that's much better. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
Or should I try calling in from my other phone?
No, it's okay. Go ahead, please.
It's okay.
Yes.
All right. So as I was saying, today the government has announced our plan, how we're going to lift the remaining restrictions in Ontario. This is very exciting, and of course this was done in collaboration with our Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Moore. And as of October 25th, we will be lifting capacity limits in certain locations where vaccine certificates are required. These include restaurants and bars, sports and recreational areas, casinos and bingo halls, meeting and event spaces. So this is coming very soon. October 25th is just around the corner.
So that would be just Monday.
That's right.
Okay.
Other places, for example, nail salons, hairdressing places, if they choose to require a vaccine certificate proof, because right now they do not require one, then they can also lift their capacity limits. So it will be up to each and every one business owner to make that decision, whether they stick to the current capacity limits without any proof of vaccination, or if they choose the vaccination certificate, program, and then they can lift their capacity limits.
Okay. I think you have forgot to say a couple of things. One is, what about the funerals? How many people could be gathering on the 25th of October as of Monday, 12:01, and also the theaters, the movie place?
So when it comes to the funerals and wedding ceremonies, etc., so our places of worship, as you know, right now, uh, there is no requirement for vaccine proof of vaccination, and so as of the 25th, the capacity limits will be lifted for those places as well.
Okay, okay. Now, I also hear that as of March 28, 2022, everything will be lifted in Ontario. How far that is true?
So indeed, cautiously, if things progress the way that we want, and if we don't see any resurgence of virus, for example, one thing that Minister Elliott mentioned today, that in the hopefully rare case that we might see a virus that would be vaccine resistant, then of course we won't be able to proceed as planned. But if things keep on going on the trajectory that we're on, then as of March 28th, 2022, we would be able to lift all of our mandates, including the indoor masking mandate, which I know people are really excited for. Especially, I know the lipstick industry has suffered a lot in the last year and a half. I say that jokingly, but of course, our ability to lift the masking mandates will certainly be welcomed by a lot of Ontarians, including our students in schools who currently do have to wear masks during teaching.
Okay, okay. Let me ask you this. What are the reasons at this stage right now that our pandemic numbers of COVID are still between 400 to 500 or 600 every day? Even more than 80–90% of Ontarians have been double vaccinated. What are the doctors are saying about that?
So, just like with any other disease, there will still be a small segment of the population. So, any infectious disease, whether it's hepatitis B, hepatitis C, HIV, or frankly, the influenza, there will be a segment of the population that will be sick at any given time. And if we look at the numbers, 400 to 500 people per day, given our size of Ontario, 15 million people, it's quite, I wouldn't say insignificant, but it is manageable at this time. And we're very happy because we have reached the milestone where we surpassed 22.3 million doses administered. So, Ontario is actually leading the way when it comes to North America in how many of our citizens, how many of Ontarians have been vaccinated. But there will always be that remaining population, people who may be ineligible to receive a vaccine due to underlying conditions such as allergies, or our youth, our children who right now are for certain ages, the vaccine has not been approved yet. And so the virus will continue to do its natural thing, which continues spreading and sometimes evolving, hopefully not with dangerous mutations. But this is quite normal when we look at other infectious diseases that we are seeing underlying infections still going on. But it's at a manageable level where our healthcare system can accommodate people who are sick. So we were worried before because our healthcare system was really at capacity and we didn't want to have to make very difficult decisions who can receive care and who cannot. But now we're at a level that is very manageable, and hopefully that trend will continue.
I'm just going to let my audience know we have MPP Natalia, and she is a spokesman for the Ford government. As you can hear, a lot of new informations are coming out, and actually it's a good signs that we are recovering and coming out of pandemic. As of Monday, 25th of October, it will be lifting a lot of new restrictions that were in place before. And as she said that as of March 28, 2022, as per the guidance of the Chief Medical Officer, everything goes well, I think more restrictions will be lifted, and most probably we will be out of COVID, hopefully. So I know for a lot of people who watches you on our show, they don't know that other than MPP, you're also a medical professional and you work hands-on at the hospitals. So what are the conditions in the hospitals right now for people who are watching you tonight?
Well, the conditions are a lot better than, of course, they were at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Right now, I would say things are returning back to normal. And,
Okay.
the normal in Ontario is that, at least in our GTA hospitals and our urban hospitals, emergency rooms are always full. So, to be honest, things are a lot busier than they were at some points during the pandemic, where people
Yeah.
were afraid to come to the hospital because they didn't want to contract COVID-19. So now things are sort of back to pre-pandemic situation. Of course,
Okay.
we still have people sick in our ICUs, but what we are seeing by and large is that I believe the number was 84% of those who are in our ICUs are those who are unvaccinated. And so those are the trends that we are seeing. And we see that people who do get vaccinated, they actually have a lot better health outcomes. And very rarely do they end up in actually intensive care. So things are returning to normal, to what it used to be before the pandemic.
Now, does your government have a plan to kind of penalize people who are anti-vaxxers?
So no, the government doesn't want to penalize
Okay.
anyone, right? We want people to take the vaccine by choice. That's why we're doing a lot of initiatives, such as giving the vaccine in some of the places of worship where people already have built trust
Yeah.
and feel confident in taking the vaccine, because their own faith leaders are encouraging them, and in their own language, and sometimes in culturally appropriate ways. I know in some of the Muslim mosques in Mississauga, there is a special place for women to go get the vaccine, right? Because there's all these things that we need to consider, especially living in a very diverse community like Mississauga and the region of Peel. So we've done a lot of different initiatives to encourage people to get vaccinated by choice. Now, for certain vulnerable settings, such as, for example, long-term care homes, where, if people get sick, if residents get sick, it could have very negative consequences, including death. For those vulnerable places, we made the vaccine mandatory for those healthcare workers. That choice didn't come easily, but we really needed to look at the risks and benefits for everyone, including the residents that do live in long-term care. But the government wants to continue encouraging those who haven't been vaccinated yet to seek more information, to talk to their health providers, and really make that choice voluntarily. The government doesn't want to force people to take the vaccine, but when it comes to some of those vulnerable settings, we made that choice. But as you may know, recently we did vote down a private member's bill that would force educators, for example, to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Because frankly speaking, we cannot afford to fire 20,000 teachers in the education system in Ontario. And again, we are trying to give them more information to make them feel more comfortable to get vaccinated. And at the end of the day, if they choose not to get vaccinated, it is their own personal choice, and we do not want to coerce anyone.
Natalia, as you know that as your government is trying to reopen the province, more and more travel is now accessible to people, and people are traveling after several months of the pandemic. Now, at the airport, there are a couple of agencies, let's like Switch Health and some other one, who are charging about $175 to vaccinate someone for a PCR test. Does your government have any strategy to bring this amounts down, which is more affordable to people when people are traveling as a group in a family, and a group of 4 or 6 or 8 if they are traveling together? Because that's a lot of money for people to get a test done at the airport just to even fly out of Canada.
So what I know is that the federal government today actually lifted their directive on non-essential travel. So until today, the federal government, Justin Trudeau, was saying that if it's a non-essential reason, really you shouldn't be traveling.
Right.
So as of today's change, I'm not sure, because we haven't looked at the policy yet, but maybe now that non-essential travel is you know, people can travel now even for non-essential reasons, we may look at that cost and see how we can help Ontarians. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, right now, some people travel for reasons that are, you can't avoid. But I would still recommend, if it's absolutely not non-essential, to still stay at home, because you don't want to be caught in a situation where you're abroad, you
Right.
get sick with coronavirus, and then you have to come back to the country. But what I do know is that Switch Health is doing random PCR tests on people returning to Canada, whether it's Canadian citizens or others. So I know that we are tracking as well people who are returning, to make sure that they're not bringing in COVID from other countries. So I think this work needs to continue until we are in a more stable situation.
Now, if you know, recently, Premier Ford was on a hot seat. He made a comment in regards to people who come and settle in Ontario. And what do you want to say about that? Because there was a lot of heated talk about that in the last 2-3 days at different radio stations and different entities as well. What does he really meant with that comment when he passed it on during a reporter asked him a question?
So I think his comment was really taken out of context. And what the Premier was trying to convey is that Ontario is open for business. We're open for jobs.
Yeah.
Currently, we have 240,000 unfilled jobs.
Right.
And we're welcoming people with open arms to come on in, work hard, just like all of us did. I'm a first-generation immigrant, and I cleaned houses with my mom when I was 14 years old, because that's what immigrants did back in the day to make ends meet, right? We were very proud to go and make our own income, to be able to take care of ourselves, and we're very thankful to Canada for the opportunity to immigrate. And so I think what the Premier was trying to say is that we're open for business, we're open for jobs, and we're welcoming new Canadians to come in and participate in our economy and participate in the job market. And I don't think there's anything wrong to say, come to Canada and work your tail off. It's a form of speech. I would have framed it differently. But the Premier is a very down-to-earth guy, and he talks in a language where most people understand. And I think it was really taken out of context. There is nothing shameful about hard work, and I'm not sure why it was trying. The media or some media were trying to portray as, putting the Premier to shame, when all he's really talking about is hard work. And that's what Ontario is all about. That's what Canada is all about, working hard to build a better community and better society for everybody.
Well, I am aware that NDP in the Premier at the Queen's Park and Liberal Party, Provincial Liberal Party, have asked for an apology from the Premier in the House.
I know Premier has apologized in the past for when he misspoke, but I believe I don't think there is anything he needs to apologize for, because again, he was welcoming new Canadians, new Ontarians with open arms, saying that we are open for jobs, we're open for business, and please come on in and contribute to the economy, contribute to the job market. There was nothing, I think it was really taken out of context. And as an immigrant myself,
okay, that's fine. We'll move on to another subject, which is more geared up to small businesses. I know it's not your portfolio. I had Mr. Sharif Sabawi here, who looks after the tourism and the travel industry, on my show a couple of weeks ago. But that has been 2 weeks ago, so I thought I should ask you this. Is there any more stimulus package like coming up from provincial perspective from the Ford government for small businesses who have been affected in COVID? I know there have been, a little bit of help that was awarded to different businesses, but there's something new that we are not aware of that you would like to share with us?
So as you said, there were previous stimulus packages, especially when, a lot of businesses were closed. So it was to the tune of $700 million that the government has awarded in grants. So that was quite significant.
Yeah.
Currently, what we have a free rapid test kits that are being provided through the Ontario Chamber of Commerce to any businesses that wish to enroll in that program to have their employees tested twice a week. So those are available free of charge.
Okay.
And so normally a test kit like that costs about $200, but it is being made available free of charge to Ontario businesses. Other things that are out there for businesses: free personal protective equipment like masks,
the
and hand
PPEs.
sanitizer.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So all of this information is available on ontario.ca/small business, as well as we introduced some mental health supports for employees of small businesses, because as you know, with the COVID-19 pandemic, people's mental health has suffered. But we do have a fall economic statement coming up. I'm not aware of all the details in that statement yet, because the Minister of Finance is doing his job, and still that statement is being drafted. I am not sure if there will be something for small businesses at this time, because we did offer a lot of stimulus in the past. But stay tuned for the fall economic statement, which is coming in the next few weeks, to see whether there will be anything new.
Okay. There's one more thing that just came to my mind right now, and that is in regards to the hospital capacity. And I know you are a medical professional yourself and you work at the hospital. How are we doing at the hospital levels with the capacities that we had issues in the past with the hospitals in the province?
So the Ontario government, we have actually invested $1.8 billion in the last 18 months since the onset of the pandemic. So we have built an additional 3,100 new hospital beds across Ontario, which is the equivalent of 6 community hospitals. And that includes beds in our own community at Brampton Civic Hospital, at Etobicoke General, Trillium Health Partners. So we are seeing that expansion and that capacity building, especially in the region of Peel, which, as you know, was one of the hot zones of COVID-19. So I think right now we're in a pretty comfortable position when it comes to our hospital capacity and our ICU capacity. We have really built from within. The one limiting factor that we do have is, which we all kind of sometimes forget, is we can build beds as much as we want, but if we don't have the staff, the nurses, the PSWs, the doctors, and the medical professionals to actually staff those beds, the beds ourselves aren't going to do the job. So some of the things that we are doing as a government, we have invested $115 million to train additional PSWs free of charge. So there's free education. And the first cohort of those PSWs is about to graduate in the coming months, which is very exciting news, because we need to hire them right away into the long-term care system, for example. We are also expanding the number of nursing students that are enrolling in nursing studies in Ontario by 20%, which is a significant increase. And so we have done many initiatives to really grow our healthcare force, which I think is very, very important, because the human health resources in healthcare is something that maybe we don't talk about enough. But the beds itself, the brick and mortar in the hospitals, is not sufficient. We really do need to grow our healthcare force, because even if we look at the demographics, a lot of our nurses are retiring or are about to retire. So we do need more young nurses, young doctors, physiotherapists, etc., coming into the system as well.
What about those foreign credentials getting accepted in Ontario? As we did talked about in a show I think a couple of months ago or so. Is there anything in the plan with the government right now that to eliminate the shortage of doctors at the hospital level, they can have some sort of I would say some sort of an adjustment plan for the doctors who cannot get into medical practice because of their evaluations or their degrees from abroad? Is anything, I know federal government is looking into that, but on a provincial level, I'm asking you that, does the government is working with the federal government to ease those restrictions for the doctors to come and do the house jobs and work at the emerges and the hospitals?
So that's a great question, and this is something that I brought up to Minister McNaughton right away when we were talking about the foreign credentials program, which he has been working on for the past year. But unfortunately, when it comes to healthcare professions, it's a little bit more complicated because, as you know, a lot of them are self-regulated professions. What does it mean to be self-regulated? You have your college. For example, I have the College of Nurses of Ontario that I am a member of. For doctors, you have the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario. And because those professions are self-regulated, they are really the ones who set the standards of practice and the rules of, accreditation for foreign credentials. So it's a little bit harder when it comes to the healthcare credentials to really recognize the foreign credentials because, like I said, it's really up to each and every regulated profession and that's works. But having said that, this is something that we are actively looking at because we recognize we need to grow our healthcare force. But for the time being, we are focusing on other professions when it comes to those foreign credential recognitions. But it's certainly something that was brought up and that Minister McNaughton is very actively aware of. And we are looking at strategies to make the process a little bit more seamless and a little bit. Because we know in Mississauga and in Brampton that we have a lot of very professionals from other jurisdictions, and they end up, working as taxi drivers because they just are unable to enter that healthcare force. And so we do want to look at strategies to really help streamline that process.
Natalia, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. You come across with so much of valuable information to our viewers at all times. I am really humbled, very thankful for your time always. When I ask you to come, you always say yes, and I am really thankful for that. Thank you so much for that. You have a blessed night, have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you very soon again. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You as well. Thank you very much. Good evening. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
व्यूअर्स ये थी हमारे साथ नतालिया MPP फोर्ड की स्पोक्समैन, और हमने आज काफ़ी डिटेल से बात की उनसे in regards to reopening strategies what the Ford government have. जैसा कि उन्होंने बताया कि March 28 is a date that has been announced, and if everything goes well, everything will be opened. That is still a few months away, but as of 12:01 a.m. Monday, October 25th, a lot of new relaxations are coming for this pandemic. So things will be much easier, but still we have to continue have the masks wherever we go. That is still the norm of the life that we have right now in Canada, and I hope that within the next 3 or 4 months nobody have to wear a mask anymore and will life come back to normal as it was before. हमने प्रोग्राम के शुरू में मैंने थोड़ा सा आज वजाहत की थी, 1-2 टिप्स आपको दी थी. एक छोटा सा ब्रेक उस पर हम जाते हैं, और then I'll come back with my closing thoughts. Please stay with us. You are watching Prime Time with me, Anjum Malik, on Voice of Toronto Television. Thank you.
Muslim Welfare Canada has made a concerted effort to lead the fight against child labor, poverty, and illiteracy in third world countries through the generous support of our donors. Both girls and boys receive free, good quality education. Help educate a needy child for just $1 a day or $30 per month. Donate generously. Call 1-866-754-3111 or visit mwcanada.org.
ਘਰ ਖਰੀਦਣਾ ਜਾਂ ਵੇਚਣਾ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਦੇ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੇ ਫੈਸਲਿਆਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਕਾਬਿਲ, ਇਮਾਨਦਾਰ ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਰੀਅਲਟਰ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਤਾਂ ਰੀਮੈਕਸ ਰਿਐਲਟੀ ਸਰਵਿਸਿਜ਼ INC ਤੋਂ ਟੀਮ ਸ਼ਾਹੀਰਾਜ ਨਾਲ ਸੰਪਰਕ ਕਰੋ।
They deal in buying and selling of any residential properties like resale, new construction, condominiums and rental apartments.
ਇਹ ਕਸਟਮਾਈਜ਼ ਹਾਊਸਿਸ ਬਣਵਾਉਣ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਲੰਬਾ ਤਜਰਬਾ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਨੇ।
ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ-ਨਾਲ ਮਾਰਗੇਜ ਅਪਰੂਵਲ ਸੰਬੰਧੀ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਵੀ ਇੱਕੋ ਛੱਤ ਥੱਲੇ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਹਨ।
For any real estate or mortgage related services, call सुखराज शाहीराज और रुपिंदर शाहीराज। फोन नंबर्स
647-701-7244 647-701-7244।
टीम शाहीराज।
माँ की सूरत हो खुदाया मेरी।
मुस्लिम वेलफेयर सेंटर के जरिए आप पाकिस्तान के रेगिस्तान में प्यासों को पानी पिला सकते हैं, गरीब बच्चों की तालीम और माली परवरिश कर सकते हैं, बीमारों का मुफ्त इलाज करवा सकते हैं। ज़कात, सदक़ात या फिदिया देने के लिए आज ही हमें फ़ोन करें 1-866-754-3111।
वेलकम बैक व्यूअर्स, आप देख रहे हैं प्राइम टाइम विद अंजुम मलिक। मेरा और आपका साथ हर फ्राइडे को रहता है रात 8 बजे, और वॉइस ऑफ टोरंटो टेलीविज़न पे आपके प्रोग्राम देखते हैं, आप पसंद करते हैं, आपके मैसेजेस आते हैं, आपका फेसबुक पे मैसेजेस आते हैं। आपका बहुत शुक्रिया, आपकी मोहब्बत का बहुत शुक्रिया। और अगर आप इस प्रोग्राम का हिस्सा बनना चाहते हैं, किसी भी आप फील्ड में हैं, आप बिजनेसमैन हैं, आप सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड हैं, आप कोई आर्टिस्ट हैं, कोई एक्टर हैं, आप सिंगर हैं, अगर आप हमारे साथ अटैच होना चाहते हैं तो आप प्रोग्राम के बाद हमसे रब्ता कर सकते हैं। हमारे स्टूडियोज़ की लाइन के नंबर है 9056704114। चूँकि हमने अभी 4-5 महीने पहले अपना ये टेलीविज़न स्टेशन शुरू किया है, वी आर ऑलवेज़ लुकिंग फॉर पीपल विद ग्रेट टैलेंट, और हमारे दरवाज़े आप सबके लिए खुले हैं। अगर आप चाहते हैं कि आप अपनी एक्सपर्टीज़ को यहाँ आके हमारे साथ शेयर करना चाहते हैं, हमारे ऑडियंस के साथ शेयर करना चाहते हैं, तो ये प्लेटफॉर्म जो है इट इज़ फॉर यू। अगर आप बिज़नेस कम्युनिटी से ताल्लुक़ रखते हैं और आप चाहते हैं कि आपके बिज़नेस की तफसील जो है वो बेहतर तरीके से जो है वो हम नाज़रीन और सामीन तक पहुँचा सकें, तो वॉइस ऑफ टोरंटो के ऊपर आप ऐड दे सकते हैं। आप कमर्शियल हमारे वी हैव स्पेशल पैकेजेस डिज़ाइंड फॉर कोविड। ये हमारा जो पूरा टेन्योर था इसके अंदर हमने डिज़ाइन किए हुए हैं, वेरी अफोर्डेबल पैकेजेस हैं, जिसमें कि आप अपने प्रमोशंस करवा सकते हैं, आप अपने प्रोडक्ट को आप लॉन्च कर सकते हैं, आप कुछ सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं तो आप उसको आके शेयर कर सकते हैं हमारे यहाँ पर व्यूअर्स के साथ। कोशिश करेंगे अगले हफ्ते एक नए गेस्ट के साथ आपके लिए दोबारा हाजिर होंगे, और अपना ख्याल रखें, और ज़रूर अपना फ़ीडबैक हमें ज़रूर दें। वॉइस ऑफ टोरंटो TV@gmail.com हमारा ईमेल एड्रेस है, और @voice of Toronto TV जो है हमारा सोशल मीडिया हैंडल है, और हम एक जस्ट फ़ोन कॉल अवे हैं। अगर आप चाहते हैं हमसे बात करना तो हमेशा हमारा फ़ोन नंबर जो है वो आप अपने पास हैंडी रखिए 9056704114। उसके ऊपर आप हमसे रब्ता कर सकते हैं। अपना ख्याल रखिए। आई विल कम बैक टू यू इंशाल्लाह नेक्स्ट वीक अगेन। टिल देन अ वेरी गुड इवनिंग एंड वेरी गुड नाइट, एंड थैंक यू फॉर वॉचिंग वॉइस ऑफ टोरंटो टेलीविजन। बाय बाय, अल्लाह हाफ़िज़।